And I said to Renee, I can't see everyone, but I'm excited everyone is here, and she'll keep me on task. I do plan on you. Please feel free, unmute, interrupt if you're like, whoa, 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 because my style is talk, 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 and keep going. I will try to pause and ask if there's any questions or anything, but I'd rather keep this informal and actually make it interactive and note that it's going to be something that's useful for everyone. So hopefully we've all come to represent our different organizations and to gather ideas that can help our students. So if we can go ahead and get started. I don't suppose, Renee, would you mind opening us up with a word of prayer, please?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you have given us to serve you. Lord, I thank you for each one of the schools that are represented today on this webinar. Lord, you know the things they're going through, and you know the things each one of these individuals are going through today with students, with their personal life, everything. I ask special blessings on each one of them today, and I ask blessings on this webinar. Lord, anoint Lori as she's presenting, and those that are hearing, may it be just the word that they need to hear today for something that might be troubling them. And we pray for the schools particularly. Lord, they need students. They need help in these troubling times right now. And we ask blessings on each one of them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and get started. So my name's Lori Mullema, and my title is Dean of Student Experience. I've been working in education well over 20 years now. I worked primarily in K-12 programs through our Regional Office of Education, so for our 2 county schools for many years, and then made the transition into higher education. Prior to that, I also worked with case services within our Department of Children and Family Services as contract work, dealing with family reunification. So I've always been kind of in this social services, working with kids, working with adults, trying to help families kind of field. So that's a little bit about me. As I have ventured into this higher education field, I really have enjoyed working with the student services areas and trying to put that student-centric focus in mind. So that's a little bit about me. As I move forward, I do want to start talking about the CAHIA mission statement. So this is CAHIA's webinar week. I thought it was appropriate to bring in their mission statement and kind of remind us about what the idea of this group is for. So CAHIA is the adult learners in particularly, and you'll see why I'm mentioning that. And the idea is this Christian post-secondary education designed for adult learners. But the idea is, how do we advance the cause of Christ, promoting, supporting, and nurturing these alternative delivery methods? So keep that in mind as we go through our presentation today and as we have our discussion. We all have our higher education in our institution's business goals. I heard even Renee mention it in our opening prayer. We have our business goals, and sometimes we don't like to consider our schools as businesses, but in the end, that is what we are. We have to be there. We have to have the enrollment numbers. We have to have the persistence and the retention rates, and we have to have the graduation rates. At the end of the day, that's what's going to keep our doors open so that we can, meet our missions of our individual schools and that of the CAHIA organization. Before we go too deep into this, why am I mentioning CAHIA's mission statement? Why am I mentioning our business goals? Well, in 2012, Stanford study on the impact of student persistence. Students that leave an institution before graduating can cost that institution up to $40,000 per student. That was in 2012. I mentioned Stanford, nice, reputable organization. We can all honor and respect those kind of research. But please note, if that was in 2012, $40,000 a student, we're still there or higher than that. We have a need, a duty to recognize that there is a difference within our student personas. We have to learn about them. There is a difference between the adult higher education model and the traditional campus student needs, and it is evolving. We have a need for fast response times, a need to measure the service. And one of those ways is to pair that technology with a customer service culture. So what I want us to look at is some of this information below, and I do have citations on all of the slides if you're curious as to where I'm pulling this. But we have noticed that a lot of schools are starting to recognize our students and our parents as customers, identifying them as such, and using some of the same ideas and pieces that greater retail uses to reach those students, to reach those customers. We can thank Amazon for some of these needs and information. You know, we expect our deliveries the next day. We want to be able to click one button and order. We want to know why there isn't an app for that. So this is the kind of piece that we're facing as we move forward. And then pair that with the idea of an adult higher education where they're working adults. They have multiple demands on their lives, and we need to make certain that we're meeting them where they are at. So I'm giving this kind of as background stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit before we get into real concrete ideas, just an awareness that we have to acknowledge there's a difference between an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid that's coming to campus. And what I am looking at is we're serving through CAHIA is the adult education model and what those needs are. We still have the demands and information that they want. So the technology pieces. I just wanted to throw out a few ideas. If any of them ring any bells, or if somebody wants to elaborate on them, interrupt me and feel free. If you have questions on them, I'd be more than willing to answer. But I would charge each one of us to really start looking at the technology that we're using and advocating on behalf of our students, for our boards and our presidents to really look at some of these pieces that we have. One feature is live chat. If it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you have a working adult or a nurse or a teacher or a business-minded student or somebody who's on a different time zone than your school and can't necessarily reach out between the hours of 8 to 4 o'clock, one option is live chat with chatbots. I'm going to jump down then to the Google Analytics to kind of help with that. Those are those FAQs. Google Analytics is a cheap, inexpensive way to start getting some information about what your students are looking at, where they are coming from, and what questions that they have. It's a very quick and easy way to start getting some information to build up what I call a knowledge base, a knowledge document file for your chat bot or your chat feature. You can work with a major conglomerate, you can work with a small organization within your towns and communities that would be willing to help with some of the live chat. One piece I also think we need to look at is amongst our team members to see if there's a way to distribute those hours to see who can cover what and when. Another aspect that I think is important just to start talking about what technology needs is a unified help desk and that awareness of the personas again. So at Olivet Nazarene University, we do have our traditional campus in Bourbonnais, Illinois, with our undergraduate students. We have some commuters, but for the most part, you're talking your 19, 20-year-old kids. Their needs are different. The systems that they use are different, and the tools they want are different. So for example, if your IT department is unified, your help desk is unified, are they aware of the different tools and pieces that you use versus a traditional campus? For us, our campus students utilize a writing center that is housed out of the library for tutoring needs. The adult students utilize a 24/7 option through tutor.com. There's different places they can refer different students. There needs to be an awareness of this. If you're looking at apps or pieces that you can implement in your school, are they looking for the adult students? Or is the first thing that pops up in that app your dorm location and your food plan, where a commuter student or an adult student may not have an interest in that? So kind of keep that in mind depending on where you're at, if you're on a online school, if you are in a satellite office, or if you are on a campus in the evenings. Other pieces I want to talk about are the CRM tools. This is the new piece that everything's moving forward with. A CRM tool is like a customer relationship management platform that allows you to really see a full picture of a student's experience. This is essential, and it's something we're striving to get to, making small strides as we move forward to try and get into that information. The left hand needs to know what the right hand is doing. We need to have a centralized place for those notes and that information. So one way to do that is through a CRM. The one that we're looking at and working forward with right now is Salesforce, which I'm sure many of you have already heard of. The Salesforce.org is a much cheaper way to try and get into something like that, but it's still not inexpensive. And we know most of the schools, it has been my experience anyway at Cahiers, and others can agree or disagree, but they were tied to that Ellucian system, the Colleague and eTrieve and those kind of pieces. So some of those to adapt to a non-traditional campus experience can be difficult, and the customization of a CRM tool may be the ticket. I also have really become more aware of the website, and any updates that you do need to take into consideration the user experience. What does the student want to see? Where do they want to click? How many clicks do they have to do? Are you using universal design as far as not just meeting ADA compliance, but also are you meeting every student where they want to be? So is the font large enough? Are the color schemes contrasting enough? If you have a video, is there the connotations, the log, the script attached to it? Those are pieces that are very important. If you've been paying attention to some of the new White House implementations, the accommodations piece are really up and coming, and they're very much taking into consideration if they have a sign language person or what is being included as they utilize different press releases and media releases. I already talked about Google Analytics. The last thing I just want to bring up as we can have some conversation around is a survey tool. We always want to find out, how did the students think? What had happened? End of course survey, end of program survey, alumni survey. But are we also asking a simple piece of a net promoter score? That's what that NPS is. If you're not sure what that is, you can message me or email me too. I can give you some more information. But consider it this, it gives you an idea of what pieces people like that then they're going to go forth and be your promoter, or what things didn't go so well that you need to change because now they've become a detraction from continuing and meeting those business-minded goals of enrollment, retention, and graduation rates. Does anyone have any questions about any of that stuff? Like, I just wanted all that out of the way. Like, we need to identify that we're different than potentially a UG traditional campus student who doesn't have maybe a job, who doesn't have a family. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about just we've got to start utilizing some technology tools to meet the needs of students, because that is what people expect nowadays. Okay. Renee, be free to interrupt me too. I don't have access right now to the chat feature, so if anything comes in there, let me know. All right, I promised some concrete. Oh, go ahead.
I haven't, no one's put anything in the chat, so
Okay.
I'm watching it.
Sounds good, thank you. So now I also wanted to give us some concrete ideas. So here we go, delve in, grab a notebook, see if any of these things would help you. So ideas that can help now with the goals for student service areas. So our business goals again were enrollment, persistence, and graduation rates. Those are going to be 3 key goals for us. I keep using the word persistence too. I want you guys to understand retention is typically defined, and many of you already know this, as first year freshmen. For myself, who work out of the School of Graduate and Continuing Studies, we have adult learners. Most of them are transferring in credits. They're not first-time, full-time freshmen. So we utilize the word persistence a lot more than we utilize the word retention. So if you were curious as to what that distinction is, and some of you were probably very aware of it. But these are the 3 goals I want us to talk about today. And some of this comes directly out of MIT Sloan's research and management pieces that they have used in the retail industry, but I think very well translate to our student services areas. One is first person language to show empathy and personal help. It's the pronouns that we use, and it can be a very simple change and monumental when you see some results. It's the warm versus a competent language. Believe it or not, both are needed, but at different times as you do a phone conversation, as you do a chat message, as you do an email. It's going to be important. And finally is concrete language for active listening. So I'm going to give examples of all of this. I'll show you some of the research as promised in the proposal that of where it's coming from, what the impact was on the retail world, and then how do I apply it to student services? How do I apply this to higher ed? Any questions yet?
None yet.
Okay. Delving into our first point then. First person language, standard use of pronouns. We've all heard it. Your patience is greatly appreciated. Your call is important to us. Those are great. That's wonderful. Half the time we tune it out though. And this may be why. Research indicates that emphasizing the word I, the agent, over we, the company, actually shows some positive results. Why? Okay, the I is personal. It shows that I am doing something. It's a connection. It's that empathy. It's ownership. The you is also really already known. I know who you is. It's the student. It's the customer. That person is well known. They have an idea of who you is already. They want to know how you can help them though. It actually can also signal blame. Now I'm going to go back a few years here, talking about my middle school experience with teaching and working with those kids on conflict resolution. All right. Well, a lot of times our student services teams are doing conflict resolution. So consider this. One of the standard conflict resolution techniques are iMessages. You've probably all heard them before. I want, I feel, I understand that. Instead of the word you, because you messages can actually escalate a situation and cause blame. So the student, let's say, accidentally entered first name where they were supposed to enter last name or something like that. Rather than you entered the data wrong, you're not going to get anywhere by utilizing that kind of language. It's just going to escalate the situation. I always talk to the kids at middle school. It was like, you're being mean, you're being a jerk, you this. It doesn't help the situation. Forget the word you. Try utilizing the word I. I also acknowledge there's times we got to use we. There's times it is our school's policy. That can also help to offset some of the blame that may be on that personal representative from the school. Try not to do that though. Here's some examples of why I'm talking about this. So consider this. Here's the research that's backing this information before, we just say, oh, Lori's crazy. If you were saying, let's send out an email. This is one that MIT Sloan sent as part of their research, but they did a no pronoun control. So the order's leaving the warehouse, blah, blah, blah. Then there's the we. We found your order is leaving the warehouse. It will arrive if we can provide any further assistance. And then finally, the word I. I found that the order is leaving the warehouse. It will arrive if I can provide further assistance. And the results were pretty astounding with regards to what was happening with that. So the results from just putting that information in an email had a 10% increase of the pronouns, resulted in a 0.8% increase in purchases. 50% shift. So even if just half the time you shift from we to I, you had a 6.6 increase in purchases. Think about the implications for higher ed. If we can increase student satisfaction by utilizing a simple pronoun, we can potentially also increase the persistence and retention rate, which then will lead to the next result. And eventually, some of our graduates will go forth and become our ambassadors. So very simple pieces that you can change with the idea of a pronoun. Questions on that? So I tried to tweak these also to how do we utilize this information here? Well, student services, it may be anything from admission to advising to student financial services. When I consider student services, I consider any of our frontline people. If we can provide assistance versus if we can provide you assistance versus if I can provide assistance, just change your email messaging or your voice over the phone with regards to that I. Another example then, think of admissions. We can offer you a discount today. Excuse me. We can offer a discount, we can offer you a discount, and then finally I can offer a discount today. Sometimes it's nice to be able to say things like that. So that was information on the pronouns, concrete examples, just trying to use the word I a bit more. Yes, there will be times that we have to say we. And actually, I'm going to show an example of that here in just a moment as we go into warmth versus competence. So does more warmth, which kind of leads one to think customer or student care, does it mean that you're less competent then with that student? Versus, does more competence, student services, mean less warmth, very cold, very matter of fact with regards to stuff? Well, MIT Sloan and some of the research that I found, so there's a need to be both, but at different times. And this is key. So when do you say what? Warmth, then competent, then warm. So there is a need to establish this kind of connection, a relationship at the start and the end of a conversation. There's also a need to be very factual, that competent, that information, that here's where you find this piece, here's how you can access our portal, here's how you do your password reset, needs to be in the middle. In fact, it can actually hurt us if we do the opposite. So it says a decrease in satisfaction if we're all solution and all competence based. So even though we help the student and solve their problem, they're still not happy. We have to do both, but at different times. So how much did the company find out? How much did it help them? Customer satisfaction increased by 2.5 points. Any of you who've done net promoter scores would know that's substantial. But the end too is, okay, did the customer, did the student stay with us another semester? Did they move forward? Did they recommend us? Yeah, purchases increased by 3.42 orders. Our goals could be similar. Our students and alumni become our champions. I recently had the opportunity just this yesterday, to be very honest, a team member included me on an email. And I thought, I asked her first for permission. I say, may I utilize some excerpts from your email that you just sent out in a presentation I'm getting ready to do? And she said, sure, that would be fine. So shout out to Becky. Thank you very much for that, if she's on. So here I've tried to take out some of the information, but first of all, she talks about setting up this I messages I see in here, and I also see the relationship building. The warmth is very much at the beginning of this email. You can see it acknowledging the stress, acknowledging the fact that this is also a healthcare worker and student. So talking about what's going on in the world today. Then we get into the competent information, the very detailed pieces, here's our policy, here's where you can find it. If you have any additional concerns and you want to reach out to somebody that's not myself, she also referred them on to the program director directly and gave the information and a name for that information. And then in closing, it's I want again, and it's the warmth. So you can see this is really something small you might think of, but if you start talking to your teams about it, what I see and have found is we start utilizing it more and more. And while we haven't been very good about measuring the results, we do ask for net promoter surveys and pieces like that. So hopefully we're going to be getting more information on that and see how this really has impacted our students and teams. Questions on any of the first two ideas that I've really talked about yet?
I think they're absorbing it, all of the facts you're giving.
I hope I'm not going too fast either, but I know I want to be conscious that everyone's time is very valuable. And I want to have a discussion of it, but I also wanted to give you something like, okay, I can take that and I can run with it. I can give those ideas directly to my team.
Exactly.
Thanks, Jamie. Got a thumbs up. I see that one. All right. The last point I really wanted to kind of cover as far as, okay, what can I use now? What can I take back to the team? Well, one piece is concrete language and active listening. Now, this might seem very basic. You guys got this. But when you actually start paying attention to it, I thought it was really interesting. So imagine here you're at this clothing store. As we talk with the customer representative, as we talk with our students, the more concrete we can get and the more action oriented, it really makes you feel heard and feel as if you are being served and have a solution in mind. So there's some examples there. I'm not going to read them all to you, but you can see we're getting much more action oriented and very, very specific as you move down the line with regards to what happens, what's the results. Well, we can see here very linear and substantial increases as far as perceived listening, the customer satisfaction, and their willingness to purchase. Now, this, of course, isn't a retail agent. So how do I apply something like this? How do I do concrete listening with students? Well, believe it or not, I tried to brainstorm some examples. So for example, I'm helping somebody find a course and I'm working with them. And I could say, would you like anything else? They're like, no, I think I'm good. Thank you very much. That was good. That was fine. But then they say, can I search for another course for you? The course is much more tangible. It's a thing that I was already working with them on. I could say, can I search for another course for you? Or is there no way, do you understand how you can see your grades? I could get into something that is much more specific as far as an action, as far as an item, but also just using the word search makes a difference. Think about this other one. We can look into that problem for you. Now here I'm incorporating both things versus I can try to fix that schedule problem. We can look into that schedule problem. Sounds a bit like I'm passing it off. I can try to fix that schedule problem. It's the I language again, and it's more actionable. You can imagine me actually trying to do that and work with it. I will say this, the more you utilize some of these information, you will have repeat customers, which is a good thing, but you will have somebody that wants to reach out to that same service team member again and again and again, get some new good friends. But that's how we can build relationships and make those connections as well. So ideas that we discussed today. We talked a little bit first about acknowledging the fact that we have different student personas and we can do some student mapping to really identify and see the different needs that our students do have. We also talked a lot about technology. Well, I talked a little bit about technology and the fact that we really have to start looking at different venues, different places that we can go to really start serving the needs, whether it be Google Analytics, probably all the way up to a customer relationship management piece. I know a lot of your schools, as far as alumni donations, utilize some of those systems already. It may be something that other, I think, teams can start to use and engage with and use that resource. So I would really push everyone to start asking some of your higher leadership if you can get a piece of that pie too, and explain to them why you're trying to do this. We talked about 3 main ideas that can help now. I hope for you guys with the student services area with regards to the pronouns and first person language, warm versus competent language, when to use what, and then that concrete language for active listening. I was going to close things off with just a few quotes here. I think it's important for us to realize while we are student services, we are also held to that standard that retail agencies have established, and they want us to meet them where they're at and kind of held that same quality. So I found a few quotes with regards to this that I thought were interesting because it really crossed the different lines of service agents. So To give real service, you must add something. It can't be bought or measured with money, and that is sincerity and integrity. And then if we look at the CEO of LL Bean, you've got a lot of people have fancy things to say about customer service, but it's just a day in, day out, ongoing, never ending, persevering, compassionate kind of activity. And then probably, of course, one of my favorites was Mother Teresa saying, be kind and merciful. Let no one ever come to you without coming away better and happier. And I think it all ties back to our Kahia mission statement that I showed at the very beginning. So now, are there questions, comments? What did that mean? Here is my contact information. I wanted to be certain I could share that with everybody in case you did want to follow up. And I believe, Renee, you were recording this session as well?
Yes, it'll be on the website.
Okay, and probably with my dogs dancing in the background that I paid no attention to. So I apologize if it was distracting for anyone, but I hope that you were able to get some good information out of this and it was helpful. If not, I apologize for taking up your time, I guess. But I have found that it's been very helpful for our teams just to kind of be aware and really stop and think before you hit send on that email. How can I improve this? What should I do? What could I change? I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see everyone's lovely face. And it looks like we have some chats here. Wonderful. Oh, wonderful. I'm sorry, I'm just reading through these right now.
Yes, I always try to get away from I. So that was kind of eye-opening for me.
Very good. Yeah, I think it was important to really stop and think. My bachelor's degree is actually in psychology. So some of this stuff I found very interesting to kind of consider and really think about and apply. But yeah, as far as serving students, they want that personal connection. And believe it or not, they want to hear I can do that for you. It's frustrating. I think just last night I had a student call that said, I used my password or tried my password one too many times. We've all done that. And she was locked out. She's like, can you reset that for me? And I'm like, I can't. Unfortunately, that's something that's, held in the reins of the IT department. So I had to refer her on. But she reached out to me because I think we had established that trust. So. All right.
Lori, I was thinking about these strategies as they apply to our other internal customers. Maybe a group of that we either lead, as I think of my role is I support faculty quite a bit, and the same communication would apply to them as we're dealing with internal team members, finding that way to build that connection and make them feel cared for.
Very well said, and very true. I think it's one that we neglect to take into consideration sometimes. And as we are working more remote, I think I heard other people, making that same comment. It's important for us to realize that some of these same pieces that we're working externally with should also work internal within our own organization.
I know with Belhaven right now, kind of our priorities are students, then faculty, then staff. And so we always try to make sure that we keep our students and our faculty well connected together. And with the remote kind of working situation, it's always neat when you do have an opportunity to serve a student or to help out with a need to just be able to step in and do that.
Well said. Well said. Any questions on any of the language that I used or something that was like, I didn't quite understand, how did this apply? Or can you give me another example of, and I can brainstorm it or we can brainstorm it together. Well, if not, I think I blew through that rather quickly.
Lori, I've got a quick question about Net
Sure.
Promoter Score.
Sure.
How do you guys actually deploy that? Is that something that you do, or maybe some other colleagues could speak to that issue? Is it, at what points would you present that? Is it part of a course survey? Because I know we do surveys for every course we teach, and sometimes people get surveyed out. So I was wondering how you guys exactly capture that. At what points in the process do you do that?
Very good question. Thank you, Mark. Yes, right now we are doing a lot of that through our end of course survey. So
Okay.
much of that is the Net Promoter Score on their course itself, and then a Net Promoter Score on the faculty member who taught the course. What we were looking also to do is, as soon as the students started, to kind of look at asking those same questions with regards to their admissions counselor versus their advisor versus their student financial services. And I can tell you from our experience, those lines get blurred. The students are not certain who's who or what's what or who did what for me. They just know us as Olivet. And this, it was somebody from Olivet that said this. So one piece I would suggest based on our experience is to not try and dial in on which team and have it become almost this competitive streak, but to consider, did Olivet meet the needs of that student, and are they going forth in creating that promotion piece to it? Anything that's like, when you look at a Net Promoter Score, you're like a 0 to 10. Anything that's like an 8, 9, and 10, you've got your promoters. Your 4, 5, 6, 7, anything that's 3 and lower, you're in trouble. And those are the things that you need to change. And I'm not certain, it depends on how your organization works. Is it more important to find out exactly what team is not working or what service? Because a lot of times your service is done based on that level of team. What we're trying to do, and we haven't quite gotten there yet, but I'm excited about, is trying to add those small Net Promoter Score pieces or survey pieces, those one quick questions at the end of a service, so that it's very specific. And that way you can even tie it into almost that exact agent, if you will. I'm sure everyone has had that experience, like how would you rate this agent at the end of the call? And that's the pieces we want to get to. It's just, smaller Christian higher ed can't quite get to that next piece of it, or even into those direct pieces. What we've done a lot is refer students to knowledge bases and something that they can be empowered to look up themselves, but we haven't done the Net Promoter Scores at the end of those instant service times, but that's something we're looking to do. Well, if more questions come up, you guys are more than welcome to reach out. We do have a student services learning community that I would have loved for everyone to become part of. You can reach out to Renee and find out some more information about that. Because we're hoping to really pull together. I can see a few of my team members on there, so that's great. Some of those people that are already on that learning community can come together, because we hope all of you will be joining us in Grapevine, Texas here in June for our conference, where we will dive more in depth with regards to some of these topics, and we really start looking at student services, faculty service, administration, and the different areas that all of our schools have in common, and we can brainstorm and work together, because we may be small, but together we can be quite mighty.